this time.
Kshitij Bajpayee, Senior Research Fellow for South Asia, Chatham House. Many thanks for your very insightful remarks. I had a question about India's neighborhood. India resides in a region in which 3 countries are in the midst of IMF bailouts: Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. 2 countries could be regarded as potentially near failed states, Myanmar and Afghanistan, and 2 countries with which India has a history of difficult relations, which also happen to be nuclear weapon states, and it also has active territorial disputes. Of course, I'm referring to China and Pakistan. You also have a relatively low level of regional economic integration and institutional integration, at least compared to other regions in terms of intra-regional trade. So my question is do developments in India's neighborhood, do they hold back or undermine India's global aspirations? Or to put it more bluntly, can India rise without its region? Thank you.
Your question, Kshitij, about the neighborhood. Again, there are a lot of things happening on the ground. This may or may not fit into a theoretical construct. For example, if one looks at connectivity, and by connectivity, I'm talking here of roads, of waterways, of electricity grid connections, of fuel supplies, of movement of people. In fact, the last 10 years has seen an extraordinary pickup that whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's Nepal, even Myanmar, that every one of these countries today in some form, compared to where they were 5 or 10 years ago, are either importing or exporting more energy, are trading more, are seeing a much greater flow of wagons, buses, people, you name it, much more goods transiting through countries or to countries. So in many ways, actually, on the ground, the real economy is experiencing a very, very profound change. Now, in terms of regionalization, perhaps in a sort of a conceptual way, it may not be that visible, but then do bear in mind when Sri Lanka had a very serious financial crisis, while the rest of the world largely sat on its hands, we actually came forward with a package of more than $4 billion, which was almost twice the size of the IMF package. So, and if you go rewind a bit and go look even at the COVID, between that region, like any other region, has had a COVID crisis, it's had a Ukraine crisis fallout. There have been issues coming out of the global economy because it relates to your question about availability of dollar, trade issues, liquidity crisis. We've actually stepped forward for pretty much every neighboring country. Whether it was supply of vaccines, whether it was supply of food grains, whether supply of fertilizers, supply of fuel, and as I said, in Sri Lanka, actually a huge economic package. So we do see today a regional responsibility. We do believe that our neighbors must do well, and that their prosperity and our prosperity are linked, and we think our own growth is could be a lifting tide, is a lifting tide for the rest of them. But while we are a larger economy and by and large we are generous and non-reciprocal, we have interests like any nation. So we also expect our neighbors to recognize that and to cater to our sensitivities as well. So I'm not saying that it has to be an equal give and take, but there are gives and takes. And I think just like we have a responsibility to our neighbors, I think our neighbors also have a responsibility to us.